Well, let's jump in. So, yeah, so Lauren, you watched
Saw
Scrambled.
Scrambled this evening. Very topical. It's about a woman in her mid 30s who recently broke up with her boyfriend, and she is thrown into many social situations where people are asking a very common question. Are you seeing anyone? No. If not, are you thinking about your future and are you going to be freezing your eggs? And that's that internal
Mm,
conflict that this girl, main character who also directs the movie, Leah McKendrick, goes through. And she ends up going through with the process, and it kind of documents and follows her process of the very exhausting and, in many cases, up and down process from a hormone standpoint that this young woman goes through over a I think like 2, 3, 4 week period preparing herself for this procedure. And it has Ego Wodum, who is on SNL, and that is her best friend in the film, who actually at the beginning gets married and speaks with the main character, who is played by Leah McKendrick, and tells her at the wedding that she is pregnant. So it kind of sets the stage of, okay, my friends are getting pregnant. She's 34. What now for me? I want to at least have that option. And it's very topical because more women now than ever are having to come to that decision, especially if there is not someone in their life at this point where they know, hey, am I going to have a kid? And should I be foregoing this process? Is it covered? If not, let me try to find funds. Like this young woman is a entrepreneur, does her own freelance creative business of making bracelets, jewelry, etc. And she ends up asking a family member who ends up giving her $8,000 for this procedure and this whole process, which is just, I knew about the process because I have some friends that actually have gone through within the past year egg donation, but I didn't realize just how much it does to your body. And this really explores that.
there's a lot of hormones involved in that too, isn't there? Like you have to medicate and all this stuff. I I've talked about it before on the show. One of my favorite shows, and it's a trashy show, and it's just who I am. But it's called Love Island. It's a dating show from the UK. I've
In a
seen
few
every season
episodes.
of it. Love that stupid ass show. And it just dropped on US television last week, so we're 2 weeks behind. But that's not the point of this. There was a girl on several years ago. Her name is India Reynolds, and she is very pretty. So of course I follow her on Instagram because I like pretty things. But she is going through that process. So she documented some of that process last year or the year before. Um, and it just seems like it's exhausting. Seems like it's a lot of work, and I don't think you know guys don't have that problem.
Right.
We're ready to go right away.
Right.
And we don't have to hold on to anything. We don't have to go through the whole process. So there was I don't know if they're doing a documentary about it, but there was an article about a dude that started donating his sperm at like 19.
Yeah.
And somehow, even though everything was supposed to be closed, the parents were able to track him down. And he found out because he was doing it so young for like 5 or 6 years, he's got like 200 kids out there or something, some insane number of kids. And like, I guess he's traveling around to meet them.
Yeah.
And like, he's got this weird attachment to them now. But like, all he did was go into um, a clinic, spend a few minutes there and leave, and he's done. What women have to go through. And then I don't like, obviously there's a financial side to this too. Like you have to pay to keep them, right? You got to pay to keep them in a freezer somewhere. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the thing. It's not just the procedure itself, which many, and Andrew and I both work in tech. So oftentimes, and Andrew, I don't know if you've seen this, like with other tech companies, like the new thing now is you go through benefits and you see like maternity leave,
Hmm.
paternity leave. And, occasionally you'll
Yep.
see certain organizations offer fertility benefits. That was never a
Yep.
thing until recently. It's a huge topic of conversation, and I think they did a really great job at giving an overview of what it's like, not only from the perspective of the female going through it, but also just how someone has a conversation about this within their family and just with others within their closest circles. So at the end, it's funny, you're so used to people having gender reveals or having baby showers. This girl ends up getting an egg shower. Her family throws her a party and it's true. Like, I feel like after a procedure like that, you need some sort of celebration based
Yeah.
on what goes on to your body. But I think they highlighted a lot of heavy and important themes, topics that aren't really discussed that women are going through. And not only that, they discuss miscarriages and just the importance of knowing not just like what it's like to go through this process for those who are not having children, but there's a scene and one of the characters, loses a child, and they cover that as well. So both spectrums, which I think is very important. It's interesting how they covered it. It was very comical at many times, but also very poignant. And I do recommend it for, women, men, anyone really. I thought they did a great job at just telling the story of why this is a procedure that's really of the future now.
Yeah. Yeah. I just looked it up on Rotten Tomatoes too, and it's only got 31
90%.
reviews, but it's a 90%. Like
Yeah,
it's doing pretty well with the critics, which is nice. It doesn't have much of an audience score yet, or doesn't have an audience score yet, but
just came out
Think it's
this
just
weekend.
dropped. Yeah, it's
okay.
brand new. Probably not super wide release just yet. But I do see it was also released at South by Southwest
I was gonna say it seems
last
like
month.
a
Indie film-ish.
She is an
yeah.
indie, I believe, director, Leah McKendrick, and she is the protagonist of this film,
And
Nellie.
And
later, she
she wrote
wrote,
it too.
directed.
Yeah.
So this is
Oh,
a very auteur filmmaking,
well,
you
she
know.
made a
They
movie in
actually, oh, go ahead.
2020 that did not do very well.
Oh,
That one got a
really?
10% from the critics. Who was in that? I can't I don't even, is that Lucy Hale? So that's how you know it probably wasn't the best, um but then her next film was called MFA, and that one was in 80%. So she figured her stuff out pretty quick, it looks like.
Yeah, and I will say it gave me, after I saw it, it gave me vibes and like very similar type of experience of how I felt that when I saw the movie Juno years
Uh,
ago.
Okay.
Just the
okay.
freshness of it, and not a very big cast, but I think just it felt like a very low budget film, but it told a very beautiful story. And it just I connected with it. My friend that I saw, who came with me, we're both in our 30s. We saw it, and we just, since we know people who are currently going through that or recently went through that, I think we definitely connected with the story. So yeah,
Have you
definitely.
seen a movie called The Swearing Jar?
No, what is that?
Um, it's an interesting one, and it's this woman, and it's kind of the tale of her going through two relationships, and it's definitely an indie film. It's a small film, and I found out about it kind of because the girl that wrote and I think directed it, her name is Kate Hewlett, and she is the sister of an actor who was one of the main characters on Stargate Atlantis, which I watched, and she showed up in a couple episodes, but I kind of bumped into like her, not personally, but just kind of found her on Twitter because of posts from her brother. And so I started following her. She talked about this movie that she made, and I just checked it out because support people where you can. And it was pretty good. Very like indie feel, definitely bordering on rom com. It was not super comedic,
Sure.
but it was good. It was like a couple, it was a good relationship film. Definitely
Mhm.
not as probably as heavy even as this one as Scrambled. But if you like those indie films, I'd say check that one out
I
just
have
to see it.
like two questions. The first one is, how did you hear about Scrambled in the first place? Number one. And then number two, does this film, do you think it encourages people to go through this process, discourages people, or just kind of leaves you neutral?
Yeah, let me answer the first question first, because yeah, these are great questions. First, I found out about it. I started a girls group actually in my neighborhood, and every 2 or 3 Tuesdays a month, it's $9 movie night. We've been seeing films, and I saw this preview actually before seeing the movie Wonka that came out in December, which is interesting because I don't I don't really see, oh,
A
the
lot of
audience that
overlap
sees,
in audience.
yeah, right. Like go to Willy Wonka and then go see Scrambled. But I take a mental note whenever I'm sitting, and I'm sure you both do the same when you're sitting in previews and something really piques your interest. I made a mental note of it and I looked it up and saw it was going to come out in early February, and it's been on my radar. And once it was released, I just asked another girl if she wanted to come with me this evening, and she said yeah, and yeah, we both really enjoyed it. So, and then to answer your second question, Andrew, I think it comes down to the individual. If she wants to forego that process, I think it's wonderful that they have these options now, as many women are waiting later and later in life to have a child. I mean, I've never gone to a doctor personally and had that conversation, but gosh, like after seeing some of the side effects, I've heard of side effects through friends of what is being experienced. I mean, seeing this girl inject herself every couple of days, you can't work out, you can't do other type of activities for a number of weeks. Uh, yeah, so there are some severe restrictions, a lot of discomfort. They show her lying on the floor throughout the movie and such, a lot of bloating, etc. But yeah, I think it really does come down to the individual. But the ending is great because she writes a letter to her eggs, and it was very nice because it was kind of leaving the door open. Like, I don't know where my life is going to take me. I don't know when I'm going to find love or if I'll find love, but knowing that I have just opened myself up for an opportunity down the line should I decide. And I think that's really the main theme of you being the person who is responsible for your own future and having those options. And it's not something that I don't know, this probably became more popular within the past 5-10 years, but before that, it's like, all right, you hit 35, you hit 40, good luck.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't have to be that. The first time I heard about egg freezing was actually on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, when Kourtney Kardashian said, after having her second or third child, I think I want to freeze my eggs. And clearly it worked because she just had her fourth child with Travis Barker. So that's good to know. But yeah, it's definitely something that you'll hear more about in Hollywood, with celebrities that are having their kids in their late 30s, early 40s. Surrogates are becoming more popular. I mean, they briefly discussed surrogates in this film. So yeah, it really does come down to the individual, but I mean, you see it around more and more. It's much more of a prevalent topic, and I'm sure it's going to be something that hopefully over time becomes more affordable, because it's one of those things that's, only an option really for people that either have money right now or works for a company. They actually showed at one point, do you work at one of the following companies? And of course it was like the big four, like Netflix and Amazon, Google, Facebook. They all have fertility benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually had two thoughts, and I don't want to
Yeah.
spiral too quickly, but number one is like, I'm gonna Google like surrogacy, because I believe the surrogacy thing is someone just takes the egg, it's like, and decides to carry your child for you. Like,
Right.
that's gotta be weird, man. Like, because once you carried that baby and then you were like supposed to just give it away now, like Red Hot Chili Peppers, sorry. But like really, like, and then also, doesn't some of the genetic material like get into the kid? So maybe the kid might even have a little, I don't know. I'm gonna Google
It shouldn't now immunities and things like that are passed through the blood potentially could be, right? Like when you get sick and you build up antibodies and things like that while the baby's in the womb, that potentially would make a difference as to what you're exposed to versus, you know,
Yeah.
the parents are. But you know, DNA is DNA, right? Like you don't, there's no third party DNA that comes in. It's made
I'm
from.
gonna Google it because I've heard of epigenetics, and I feel like epigenetics is the idea of things from the outside getting in there. But I digress. Now I'm gonna pivot for a second and
Wait,
go
I
back
have,
to
I have
Wonka.
I
Oh,
got wait, I got one
you go
question.
first, but then I'm gonna go to Wonka for a second. But you go
Yeah, yeah.
first.
What like time frame does this movie take place? Like, is it like months, weeks, years?
Within a month figure.
It's
Because
from
there's,
beginning to end. The whole movie is about a month.
yeah, about a month. Yeah, because the start of the movie, she is at her friend's wedding, and towards the end, they're like, I was just at my friend's wedding like a month ago.
Oh, so
And
this is really like pretty tight on her journey. Like it's really
yeah,
okay.
like she decides to do the process, goes to the doctor's office. They read her, I don't want to say the right act, but like, you must do this, you must not
Hmm.
do this. And um it's an interesting process too, because then she's really thinking, is this what I, not that is this what I want, but she's like, I think many women, am I where I should be in life? It's like that internal question that I think, you know, I'm sure men go through this too, right? Am I where I should be? And the answer should always be yes, because your trajectory is your trajectory. But she starts going through her phone and trying to find like old numbers of men that she had relationships with, and then meeting up with some of them. And it's funny because, and I'm sure we can all relate to this, right? You remember somebody and then you meet up with them again, or you'll see, and then you'll be like, oh, that's why you're not my person,
Yeah.
etc. And it's funny because it's similar to Juno. They have like the words come up, like they had one that was called like the cult leader, and then they had one guy who was the nice guy and who starts tearing up like when he sees her, and it's like, oh yeah, he was not for me. Um, one guy who's named the Burning Man, and he just comes in, like walks in like with a bunch of smoke. He probably had just smoked weed or something or whatever. And yeah, it's just it goes through like the men she's dated, and you know, just no one was just right for her, and that's okay. But I think her going through this self-doubt of like, I'm 34, what did I do? Or did the right man, the one that got away, did he actually get away, or have I not met him yet too? So I think it just goes through that internal conflict on top of, hey, my body clock is ticking, and let me at least give myself the option. So yeah, it's just so topical, and I thought it was great as a woman in her 30s, and my friend, a woman in her 30s, seeing this. And it's just funny living in New York City, knowing what the dating world is like. It's just, it was like, it was written for my demographic. It really was. It was written for my demographic, for women in their 30s that oftentimes, I mean, they want women from like the age of 30 to 35. If they're not with somebody, this is a question that every woman is asking herself, and they finally made a movie about it.
Hmm.
Because you go to the OBGYN and you're in your 30s and they're asking you, are you thinking about children? And that's when, you know, the wheels in your head are like, am I thinking about that? Am I not thinking about that? If, you know, and that internal dialogue unfortunately leads to sometimes some negative thoughts. Am I on the right track? Should I be where I am? And all that stuff. And this is all addressed in this one film. So you wanted to bring up Wonka,
I
which was
did. But and I am going to, but I also just wanted to tie it up in a bow for me. I think this is a
yeah.
movie about controlling the controllables, and that's one of my axioms in life.
Oh,
So don't be a passenger in your own life. Grab the
It
wheel.
just, yeah, it just sucks because like I've had a lot of friends that are women and go through the same thing. And the problem is that when you're a woman, you go into the doctor's office and it's a ticking clock at some point. Like they're like, you really only have so many years left that you can do this, right? And some people are fortunate. Some people can have babies at 45 and 50, and it still is
sure.
possible, but the odds are very low. Whereas you've got, again, guys, Robert De Niro just made a baby at
Yes.
80 years old. So
Yeah.
like it
Right.
sucks. It's so much harder you know, and I say this obviously not being a woman, but it's so much harder for women. You go in and the doctor really is like, and family and everybody around you is just
Pressure.
like, yeah, it's like, are there's the two questions that you always get if you're a single woman after 30 is, oh, are you going to get married soon? And are you going to have a kid soon?
Right. Whereas the man, it's like you'll be in your 30s, 40s, 50s. Oh, we don't even have to ask him. And it's
Yeah.
funny you
Yeah.
mentioned that because the director slash main character, played by Leah McKendrick, has an older brother in the film who is like this very successful businessman and makes a lot of money. He ends up funding her the $8,000 so that she can go through this process. And she said they're at a dinner at their family table where they grew up. And she says to her parents, why aren't you asking him when he's having a kid? They're like, oh, don't worry about him. We want to know about you. You're going to be the one who's like actually giving us the child. And she makes a joke to him, you're probably not going to even want to even think of having kids until you're like 70 or you're a multimillionaire CEO and you'll probably impregnate some woman in her early 20s. And he says, yeah, that sounds about right. And that was like the comical portion to this part of the movie, but it's actually like you see that very often. Like you said, De Niro, and I think Steve Martin's another example, David Letterman. These are men that had kids like after 60.
Hmm.
So I was trying to remember his name, but it was the other guy who was in The Godfather, the shorter one, Michael Corleone, forget his name. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about, though. He's a big deal. Not De Niro, the other guy, Italian guy. Come on,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
come
okay.
on. He was in
Um,
the Devil movie with Keanu Reeves, Al
yeah.
Pacino.
Yeah, there
Anyway,
you go.
Yeah.
Al fucking Pacino. Anyway, he has had a kid too, I believe. All right, going back to Wonka really quick. I mean, to me, it is actually no brainer to have Wonka this debut at Wonka because what's his name? Chalamet, I think, is a heartthrob. So I think a lot of like women and young women are into Timothy Chalamet. So that's the draw. That said, that said, I know a few episodes back, Jen went and saw Wonka and didn't like it. I'm assuming you saw Wonka, Laura, because you said that you saw the trailer. Really
Yeah.
quickly for the viewing audience, how was Wonka from, I believe you were a Timothy Chalamet fan. So how was the film? How did he do?
I actually don't really like Timothy Chalamet.
Oh, my bad.
But no, it's okay. Just like I don't like Taylor Swift like that, but it's okay.
Yep.
Uh he killed it. I thought he did a great job. I'm not a huge fan. I don't like Timothy Chalamet like that where I'm like, oh, heartthrob, whatever. But I think he is incredibly talented. And the first time I saw him was in Call Me by Your Name, which was, pre-pandemic, and told the love story of two young men in Europe that are during a summer. But going back to Wonka, yeah, I wasn't sure how he was going to do. And I think he crushed it as a young Willy Wonka, pre-factory, everything. It's just really the foundations of how he got into chocolate making and how he was able to build his business in this, I guess, popular market. You saw it, right?
No, but the
No.
reason why I'm asking is because the person who saw it, Jen, was not a fan of his performance. So I wanted to get different opinions,
I
basically.
thought he was great. So, I mean, if you're comparing him to Johnny
Gene
Depp
Wilder.
and
Or
Gene Wilder, they're kind of like dark and a bit jaded, whereas you have Timothy Chalamet, who is very positive, humbled, and in many respects just super motivated in building his business. He's not going to let anything stand in his way, even though there are some current chocolatiers that are doing everything that they can to prevent this guy from going out and making his own business. But I thought he did a great job. Yeah, there's a lot of criticism on the movie. I mean, I thought it came out at Christmas. It was filled with like all of the good feels that you want to feel like around a Christmas movie, the colors, the effects, just the storyline, and how he like inspires people to want to be a part of his journey, want to be a part of Wonka, want to be invested in chocolate. And it tells a story. It's really a beautiful story because it includes I forgot her name, Sally, who plays his mother. I'm going to look it up now. but she's the one who inspired him to actually make chocolate in the first place. And his mother's love is what gives him like that motivation in building this chocolate empire. So yeah, I think it was a really great film. I know a lot of people want, I guess, I don't know what other people thought. Sally Hawkins was his mother, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people maybe wanted or envisioned something different. But I mean, they had a great cast. Michael Key, Keegan-Michael Key, he's in it. I mean, they have Olivia Colman's in it. They just have a really great cast. I thought it was very magical between the colors, the whole scheme of everything, and it just told a really good story of how he got his start in his factory.
Because I'll be real, like I think anybody who watches the podcast knows that I'm not Mr. Musical, I'm not Mr. Whimsical, I'm not Mr. Christmas movie. Like that's not me, right? But that trailer intrigued me enough because the one thing I do gravitate towards is a story about like climbing or building or overcoming something. And from the trailer, it just seemed like he wasn't that dude yet. This was his rise. And that to me was like that. I could check that out. That looks pretty cool. So anyway, that was not planned. We didn't plan to talk about Wonka.
That's okay.
Wonka trailer. And to me, it was like, of course they would be. I mean, come on, like I could be wrong. I'm totally being stereotypical, but like as far as the theater itself, like do you remember the demographic of who was watching the movie? Was it families? Did it skew more women than men? Like what's the situation? And I'm totally
that was the only theater night that I've held and organized for women where the whole theater was filled. On like, granted, it was also opening weekend, but it was a mixture. It was 12 women in the group that I've started and organized showed up. One of them actually brought her daughter, which was nice. But yeah, there was a mixture of families. There were adults in the theater. It was pretty mixed, but I think it's because it's such a classic film and it's a classic story and a lot of people love it. It gives them joy. Willy Wonka is a character of joy and it's nostalgia. Exactly. Sort of like, I don't know, like Jumanji in some regards. Like everyone loves the story of Jumanji. A lot of people love the story of Willy Wonka. It just brings a lot of good memories for people. So I enjoyed it. I know it got a lot of criticism, but I'm also like very open-minded when I see a movie. I feel like it takes a lot for me not to like a movie personally.
It's good to know.
Yeah.
All
I'm
right,
curious on your thoughts of Saltburn now that you've seen it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Can we do that? All right, cool.
Yeah, let's do it.
So first of all, man, okay. So Saltburn to me, like, okay. So you all know that I am pretty introverted, right? So to me, it's like one of the best ways to avoid drama and bad things happening in your life is to be very selective about who you let into your life, okay? So that to me was like one of the biggest lessons, right? So like if you're watching Hereditary, like not Hereditary, oh my God. Anyway, that movie about the Airbnbs, like don't go to Airbnbs. You don't talk about the horror film, but anyway. And then for this one, if you live in an estate, you don't just invite some rando to come and stay with you because bad things will happen. You don't know him from Adam, number one. Number two, I actually didn't think Felix was that bad of a guy, except for his little incest problem. Did you guys peep the incest thing going on in that movie? Did you peep that? If you didn't, let me remind you. Okay. So first of all, when he's showing Oliver around the house, he says something about, oh, that's where I accidentally fingered my cousin. He says that, number one. And then number two, when the sister confronts Oliver, like, hey, like, so you're just gonna like ignore me now? Like, you know, you're like Felix scare you off. She goes something like, you know, oh, he doesn't like to share his toys even when he's done with them. Okay, so she's referring to him herself actually as a toy too because he's done with her. That's why he was so jealous, and that's why he got mad at Oliver, and that's why I got mad at the guy from the last time. So as far as Felix is concerned, I actually thought his intentions, as far as bringing Oliver in, welcoming me in, even though Farley, who was pissing me off so much, that jealous cousin. I'm gonna park that for a second because I want to talk shit about him for a second. But Felix was actually, I think, a stand-up dude, except for that. Okay. So everyone in that movie, yes, was deeply, deeply flawed. And when Oliver says, they had no natural predators because they're so rich, and so he had to go in and be the predator, like that was like, whoa, like that's a lesson right there. Like, never lose your edge. Like, as a human, if you want to be a dodo bird and be naive or dumb or oblivious or whatever, then you're just basically you're holding up a sign to say, hey, predators, come get me. I just felt like that film was such a cautionary tale for just not just don't be just don't be dumb, man. Like, I get in rant mode sometimes. You're seeing this for the first time on the podcast, but I really like, it was a dark film. Um
But it's
and
truly a character
Barry
story.
acted his ass off.
Yes, he
I
did.
mean, holy crap. And you guys warned me, but even like that grave scene, like, I can see why you guys said that was a closed set, and some really like just dark shit had to come out of him to channel that performance. And then even at the end, dancing, like, dude, you can dance. Like, he can dance. Like, he was like a trained dancer, but to do that in that state, just so, like, that's a brave thing to do. So I mean, anyway, that was my opening salvo. But then I just got to talk about Farley for a second. Yeah, I'll say it's Farley. Man, like, he was a textbook hater. Like, if you ever want to know what a hater is, like, in life, his picture should be the dictionary. That guy would not let up from the moment that they met. Like, he kept on just dissing him and dissing him and dissing him and being mean. And I'm just like, what's wrong? Like, so I said this to the text group at the all, but we have a text group in the All Pop Culture group. I said, anything bad happens to him, I'm gonna smile. And I smiled so many times. Like, when he got framed apparently for the bowl stealing thing, and then when the dad's like, I'm cutting you off forever. And then even like his mom, who's off screen, like, yeah, you're a Pollyanna too. Like, you run off to the United States with no plan. You clearly got with the wrong dude. Now you're a single mom. Now you're broke. And now you're destitute. This movie was about people who are not controlling their controllables. So that is my thesis for this podcast. Control your controllables, because if you don't, you'll end up
In a
with
bad
some
situation.
dancing around in your house naked to murder your dance floor. And that's, of course, hyperbole. That's my opening salvo for how I think about the film.
Okay. No, that's a good analysis. But regardless, it is like a huge like character study, like just looking at Oliver Quick from like the beginning of the film to the end of the film.
Transformation.
Total transformation.
And that's the other question too. I mean, was it a transformation? How much of it did he
Oh
put on
no,
the
it
whole
was
way
it was it
through?
was
Like,
the layers coming off.
yeah, like it was like he's the same guy at the beginning and the end, but he's putting on
Yes.
this persona for 80% of the film, and
Lies.
and just gets worse and worse and worse. Like, but like, and he's willing to do
Whatever.
anything to to
Right.
ruin these people, because there's a scene with the girl on the bench and he's just covered in blood. You've got then you have the bathtub scene, you have the hand job scene with Farley. Like,
I
like
forgot about that.
he just he's
Yeah.
such a crazy character, because he just there's no limit. There's nothing that he won't do.
Scruples. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
All he wanted was a damn house, and he got it. Like, and that to me is nuts. And it's not like you were even destitute. Like, you came from a decent household. Like, you were just a liar. And that's the other thing. I feel like he almost had me. He almost had me. He's like, can you see how much I love you, man? I'm willing to lie because that's how badly I want to be with you. And in my head, I'm like, okay, I can sort of see that. Sort of. This is as I'm watching the movie, but you're a liar, dude. And you can't, if someone lies, they're basically useless to you. They're useless. Their word means nothing. And so it's also another cautionary tale. Like, if someone's willing to lie about the little things, then just back away.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, because again, nothing really bad happened to people who kind of keep to themselves. Whenever bad things happen, it's because you were actually attaching yourself to someone who could do something bad to you. So
Well,
just I'm overdoing it now, but like this is like introversion fucking like it's good to be an introvert. It's good to like kind of keep people at a distance and be very, very selective about who you bring in because he took out the whole family, even the
yeah.
mom took out her breathing tube.
Well, and it's funny 'cause you say control the controllables, but the one
Yes.
person that was in control the entire time was
Father.
Oliver.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
yeah, that
Yeah.
too. But
he was.
how about the father? Like, I feel like the father wasn't really
He was
as
the
involved.
yeah, he was the only one that kind of got it.
But he was a bit of an
Uh,
adult. But when he walks up to the body and he's like, "Hey, son, like get up." Like you could tell he wasn't really, he like he let his for the most part let like the mother kind of run the show.
Right.
Like so it's like no, they were just. It's also I think kind of I mean I don't know like I feel bad because I have to be really careful about what I say here, but like it is kind of a critique of like the super rich because I think after a while like yeah like I'll just say like I've maybe observed or seen people who are in that super rich category who are mad dysfunctional. Like things that you wouldn't believe happen. And so this movie, even though it does seem a little crazy, like no, I think people really are like that. Like even the friend who was like staying over for like way too long and they're trying to get rid of her, like who was so like just
That's Carrie
fluid.
Mulligan's character.
Thank you,
Yep.
yeah.
Carey Mulligan. Like they exist. And it's like, what are you doing, man? So yeah, man. Now I want to understand like where this movie came from, who like where did this story come from? Like this had been based on some people that that they knew because the characters felt, I think, a little too three-dimensional. I will also say though, I liked how authentic the time in London at that school felt. I could actually imagine myself going to that school. But I would just keep to myself. I wouldn't try to like fit in. I would just do me, kick ass at school. I wouldn't hang out with that crazy guy who's like, ask me a question. Like, that little like psycho, like, mathematician guy, like he's nuts. But like, you don't need to like, just, yeah.
Did your
Anyway,
jaw drop, Andrew, when you saw, as they flash back to Oxford, him poking the holes in Felix's
yeah,
tire for his
yeah,
bike, and then the wallet that he's opening,
yeah,
he actually has cash in the wallet. So he's manipulative before
yes.
we even know
Hmm.
he's manipulative.
No, he's like he's actually kind of he's an evil dude, man. And yeah, I just I'm not talking about him really because it's like he's evil. Like you can't control evil people. Evil people will do what they do. But what you can't
Right.
control is whether or not you get taken in by them. That to me is where I'm at.
Right. And this guy barely knew him. He knew him for a semester, but like
Yeah.
how they only hung out a few times. They barely
Yeah.
know each other.
Even the sister was like, stranger danger. She's laughing. She's like, you've only known him for maybe 6 months tops. What are you
Right.
doing here? And
Right.
then even Farley was like, isn't this weird? Why is he here? He's like, why is this dude here? So yeah.
I think Felix is someone that just like sort of like his mom is like into the whole attention seeking. This
Hmm.
he knows that Oliver Quick adores him and looks up to him and envies his life. And I think that's something that he thrives off of.
And it's funny you say that because I think that both you and Kevin, I think you said he had the broken wing syndrome.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, like, I don't know. I actually just saw him as me personally, I saw him as just again, perk the incesty shit. I think outside of that, I actually saw him as no. I feel like sometimes when you're the true, like that, he was the leader of the crew. Like even like when they're all around the table, shot. He said, "Farley, what are you doing? Like that's going to cost a fortune. Like you're an asshole. Like when you're that, like when you're from that position, I think he literally was just like, no, I'm just going to take care of people. He's like Jack from Lost. So like he's just like when you have to whom much is given, much is required, something like that. Or like with great power comes great responsibility.
Great
I feel like
responsibility.
he was that kind of dude. But yeah, but he was gullible. I mean, even the fact that after he found out that Oliver was lying, like you could tell he was genuinely hurt. he played along in the living room at Oliver's parents' place. And then when
Yeah.
Oliver says, don't tell anyone else, he's like, of course I'm not telling anyone else. It's dark enough, you know? So it's like, I feel like, you know, if he really was, I just, yeah, I think he was just, he was a tragic figure who drank whatever Oliver put in his wine and died. Um, Oliver was not in love with him. Oliver hated him, and hate and love are actually two sides of the same coin. They say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference, and I actually believe that. Because yeah, I think that's the other thing. Passion is a dangerous thing. I mean, yeah. The guy was sick. Whew. I don't think I've been this passionate in a while on about talking about something.
So did you like it? How would you rate it? Or would you recommend
I
it to
would
people?
rate it as like a B just because like I didn't really like, at least with like Midsummer, there were several lessons I learned from Midsummer. And I think the biggest one is do not string along someone who if you're in a relationship and you're not that into it, it's more cruel to like just dangle it along than to cut it off. And I felt like what happened to Danny in that film was the boyfriend was wrong. And I don't think he deserved to be burned up in a bear suit, but at the same time, he was a fucking dick. He was.
Mhm.
And if he hadn't been that way, Danny wouldn't have been as vulnerable to the cult. So that's there's other lessons, but like I'm all about the lessons. I think this film was just dark as hell because you know I can only think of one lesson, and that one lesson is yeah, just don't be a
Cautious. Yeah.
don't just let people in your fucking life like who are shifty, and yeah, it was just an icky feeling film,
Mhm.
but yeah, I give it a B. But I'm glad I saw it because it's part of the national conversation, or at least the cultural conversation. And
Yeah.
Barry played his fucking ass off. So
Yeah.
I just feel like as an actor, this was a tour de force.
Yeah. Yeah. He's awesome.
Thank you for asking. Did you want to talk about Juliet? I feel like Kevin, you haven't talked about a whole lot, so I want to make sure we're passing the ball around and being democratic.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll go on a couple things real quick. I got one more thing after this, but besides your thing, I started Mr. and Mrs. Smith
Yes.
on Amazon Prime. I thought it was interesting because I think they dropped all of the episodes at once, which isn't always the Prime thing to do. Which in some cases makes me think they're not super confident in it,
Mhm.
but I don't think that's the case in this one. Um, I think this is it's a really different take on Mr. and Mrs. Smith because when you think of it, you think of the Brad Pitt,
I put Angelina Jolie.
Angelina Jolie kind of action rom-com movie, and this one's almost the opposite of that, almost in every way. Um, in that one, they were married for a long time. Turns out they were both spies. They didn't know the one, the other one was a spy. Then they get assigned to kill each other, and madness ensues, and then they kind of live their own happily ever after, right? Like it totally goes that rom com route. This one is not an action film. At least, like I've only watched the first episode and a little bit of the second one, but this is not an action comedy in the way that the movie was. It opens up and it seems like it's going to be an action film. So you have this opening scene with Alexander Skarsgård and Aiza Gonzalez. They have a shootout. There's a bunch of action. Like all this stuff happens in this opening scene. So it feels like they're setting up action for the rest of the pilot episode. And there's almost none until the very end. And it's all about their two kind of, I don't know if they're mediocre spies, but they're spies that don't have a lot of prospects right now, and so they get assigned to this detail where they have to work as a unit. So they have to pretend to be a married couple. So rather than not knowing and finding out that the other's a spy and they're on opposite sides, they don't know each other at all. They get put into this fake marriage relationship and then now they have to make it work and so the as the show goes on from my understanding they get more and more into each other. So it's like the rom-com thing kind of almost works in reverse. Instead of them being together and drifting apart and coming back together, they're coming together. Um, but it's a really interesting pilot because when we need to get to know our characters, they need to get to know each other too. So it's really easy for them to introduce each other, and go over their pasts, and at the same time, because they're both spies, there's still a level of, what is the truth and what isn't when they're talking to each other and introducing themselves to each other, and all the stuff they go through. So it seems really solid so far. It's doing really well from the critics. The audience score is a little lower. It's like an 87% from the critics and 64%, I think, from the audience. Um, but I mean, the actors are solid. I mean, Donald Glover and Maya Erskine are great. She's blowing up. I've seen her in like 3 or 4 different things like over the last like 6 months. Um, so she's really solid, and I think it seems like it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to watch the rest of it. Like I said, I think I was worried when they dropped all the episodes, but it seems pretty solid. And one thing that's interesting, that the two of you actually might like about it. One of my one of the people I interact with on Twitter is a screenwriter, and he's from New York, and he really enjoyed the use of New York in the show. Like all of the locations are like authentically New York locations, right?
Mhm.
So like he's like, these are all places I've been. So he's like, I really connected with this first episode because it's very, it's not just a street in New York, right? Like it feels like it's these locations. And so um that was pretty cool to hear somebody else say that, from New York, have that feeling about it. Um, and that's that. And then the other thing that I started tonight before we started recording, and I didn't get super far in it, is called Freelance. It's it's on Hulu, I think, right now, and it is a film. It says it came out in 2023, but I don't remember hearing about it at all. I thought it was new for Hulu today, or this week. It stars John Cena and Allison Brie. And I was telling Andrew before the show. Well, the premise of it is he John Cena has washed out special forces, so he's a lawyer right now. His life is kind of boring. He's got a wife and kid, and that's kind of on the rocks. He really loves his daughter, but him and his wife aren't doing really well. And a character played by Christian Slater comes to him and offers him a job in private security for a reporter played by Allison Brie, who's going to interview the president of some South American country. Um, and he's a like kind of a reclusive leader that has a ton of personality but doesn't do interviews. And he requested her specifically, so they put John Cena on this detail. Turns out this guy is the same guy that's responsible for the death of like his whole unit or something like that, right? And it's a really interesting movie because I was telling Andrew before the show, this is one of those movies that feels like there's just something that doesn't click in this movie. Usually, when I see a movie with John Cena, he's not an Oscar winning actor to me, but he always has a lot of personality. And he really doesn't in this one. Like he's just kind of downtrodden. He never really brightens up. And then it's kind of the same thing with Alison Brie. Like she's usually funny. Like she's usually a pretty good scene stealer, or she's at least a passionate and emotional character. And she just kind of plays a crappy person in this, and she just doesn't have a lot of personality, and it doesn't really go anywhere. And so I looked it up on Rotten Tomatoes, and sure enough, the critic score is a 6%, which is one of the lowest critic scores I've ever seen. The audience score, funny enough, is like 70% or 77% or something like that. So the audience is liking it more than the critics, and they seem to be liking it more than I do. I'll probably finish it just to see if anything shifts through the movie. Um, but like watching it, you can kind of just see, where it's going to go based on the setup. It's going to have some action in it. He's going to protect her. They're going to, I mean, my guess is because he's estranged from his wife that they're going to like have a thing but not quite have a thing, and then he's going to realize he misses his wife and go back to his wife and be happy with his family, and that'll be in the movie. Like there's nothing in this movie that feels innovative at all. Like it's just going to be that movie. Um, so I'll watch the rest of it, but it didn't impress me in 40 minutes worth of watching. So
What platform was this on? It
Hulu.
was on Hulu. Okay.
Yeah.
The box office, or the budget, was 40 million and the box office was 9.1 million.
Yeah, I don't remember hearing about it in the theater at all.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the in Wikipedia right now. It was released back in October. Probably didn't get a lot of theaters, but yeah. I'll ask you the same question I asked Lauren. How did you hear about this again?
You know what? It just popped up on Hulu, and like it was just kind of in the recommended section, and for me, Hulu and Netflix usually do a pretty good job recommending things for me, because I watch very certain types of things, and it's usually, like I said, pretty accurate. And looking at the cast, I would have thought that this was something I would enjoy. And even the premise of it, seemed like it could be fun. But there's just no fun in it yet. It's just kind of dour. So we'll see. It might get better, but I don't know.
Well, before I forget, I did also mention in our pre-show that I wanted to give a quick recognition to an actor that I remember growing up with. He was in the Rocky films at first. He played a guy named Apollo Creed, who was the main kind of like person that Rocky had to beat in Rocky 1 and Rocky 2. That, of course, is Carl Weathers, who passed away, I want to say Thursday or Friday. Either way, it was
Yeah.
like in the week, this past week. And then in Rocky 3, as those of he was like, after Mr. T beat the shit out of Rocky, basically he reaches out to Rocky, and then he helps him. Then of course Rocky 4 happens, and we know what happens there. And then of course the Creed films, with Michael B. Jordan, he plays the son of Carl Weathers' character.
Hmm.
But anyway, it actually kind of hit me a little bit more than I thought it would. But I think the reason why is because this is now stuff that, like, these are people that I grew up with, like, as a kid. So like I know, like, for example, when William Shatner goes, I'm gonna feel that one because that's
Oh
Captain
yeah.
Kirk. So it's like, as a kid watching TV, these are the adults. And then like he was in Predator, like, and there's a lot of movies that I haven't seen him in, but I know he's been in that I haven't seen. I'm now gonna go see them. But yeah, you
There was a
know,
real like outpouring on social media too from people that worked with him. It seemed like he was a pretty awesome guy.
yeah.
I saw the one from Stallone, I saw one from Schwarzenegger. I saw
Jesse Ventura did one too.
yeah,
About what?
the director of Happy Gilmore, because he was in Happy Gilmore. Um, what's her name? From The Mandalorian,
Oh
who
yes,
um
uh, Robert
no, no,
Rodriguez.
no, no.
Oh no,
God damn it. She's the Asian guy, Ming Na.
oh, Ming
Ming
Na
Na.
Wen.
Yeah, she was on a plane, so she was actually like when she found out, and she posted a video, talking about it. I mean, she's crying, and she got to work pretty closely with him in The Mandalorian, and I don't know if they've worked on other stuff too, but um, people, the people that worked with him, to see that many people kind of jump on it, not just say like the usual thing, like they were
Yeah,
pretty heartfelt. It says a lot about a person, I think, that
no.
he got that kind of attention.
He also played for the Oakland Raiders in 70 to 71, and then the
Did he
DC
really?
Lions with the CFL from 71 to 73. So, he was a number of actors, I think left the NFL in the 70s and became, actors, as I just said. But yeah, totally random. Did you ever, are the Rocky films like up your alley at all, Lauren? Did you ever see any of those?
My dad had me watch the first one, and
That was a little rough. I think there's a scene in there that would not play well today. I think Kevin, I think you know what you're talking. Did you ever
I've
watch
never
Rocky?
seen any of the Rocky films, not a single one.
Oh. All
fun.
right. Well, Adrian, of course, is his wife,
Hmm.
Talia Shire. Yeah, that first one. Yeah, I'll just leave that at that. They would not fly today. But anyway, but yeah, no, the first film is definitely, I think it won an Oscar, I think.
Yeah, oh
Um,
yeah. He won for
best screenwriter, I think, or
screenplay, I think. Yeah.
yeah. So the first one's like more of an art film, and then the second one's kind of like the it's halfway, it's like a sequel to the art film, and then the third one, yo, blockbuster. Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, dun. And
It's
the
the
fourth one was
genesis of
like,
Sylvester Stallone as we know him
yeah,
today, right?
like a Rambo, because even the first Rambo was more of like an art film too. It wasn't like, yeah, it was just more like this Vietnam vet who's like traumatized. So yeah, so even when Sly goes, when Arnold goes, like it's gonna be all our heroes from the 80s like passing away. So anyway, Carl Weathers, you were the man. And I'm gonna watch Action Jackson because like that was like your like headlining movie. So I just wanted to give you props. People obviously loved you, and I'm sure for good reason. So rest in peace.
For sure. All right. Well, that was super depressing. So tell us about Juliet.
It's called And Juliet. So you know how they have
Just
Romeo
without the
and
Romeo.
Juliet,
Yeah.
just without the Romeo. So And Juliet. I should have brought my playbill. It's on the other side of the apartment, but nonetheless. So this originally started out in the West End in London, and it was so successful, as with many Broadway shows, they'll either start in New York, start in London, and then they'll make their way across the pond to the other city. And this started about a year. I think it was released early in 2023. I finally got tickets for it through the 2-for-1 deals that they have for Broadway Week, which happens at end of January, early February every year, and then in the summer. So this is the one I chose since I did not win this yet through the lottery, and it's very expensive and it is very popular right now. So I went with a childhood friend that I hadn't seen in like 4 years since pre-pandemic. And uh, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it is built on an alternative ending. What if Juliet did not actually take her life? If you go back to the traditional play of Romeo and Juliet, Juliet is supposedly dead. Romeo drinks poison because how can I live without the love of my life, who I just married, that I met 4 days ago, which they keep on bringing up throughout the play, which is hysterical. And instead of her waking up from her slumber like Sleeping Beauty and taking a dagger to her heart because her dear Romeo didn't leave her enough poison to drink for her to kill herself, she just all of a sudden, it features, well, the beginning of the play has William Shakespeare and his wife Anne, and Anne says, oh, that is a lame ending. She just throws her life away because the love of her life takes his life. So she's like, I must die too. No, 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 no. Let's roll this back. Let's come up with something better. So Anne Juliet, you see her with the, Juliet, you see her with the dagger, and she decides, no, I'm not going to do this. On to the next. So this alternative ending has her and her best friend, who is a non-binary character that they create named May, and they go on an adventure to Paris. And the Capulet family, her parents say, hey, since Romeo's gone and you married him, well, you're going to a nunnery, sorry. And she flees, goes to Paris with her non-binary friend May, and then they go to a ball in Paris and they meet and come across some new people. And it's just really great how they develop this alternative ending to a very classic Shakespearean play. And the thing that's making it so popular is not only, hey, it's probably the most well-known play that Shakespeare has written that most people have seen, read about at some point or another, but they're using different and very popular songs from the early 2000s to tell the story. They've got Kelly Clarkson songs, they've got Backstreet Boys, NSYNC. One of the songs is "It's Gonna Be May," with May is the non-binary character. So just they're very creatively throwing in these classic songs. When you first meet Juliet, for example, she's got a dagger and she sings, oh, baby, baby, how was I supposed to know? And she does, the the Britney Spears version. They have a French family sing Everybody instead of Backstreet's Back All Right. Du Bois Band Back All Right. It's so creatively written. If you Google the soundtrack, there's probably not one song you don't know about. I mean, they got Celine
Check this
Dion.
out. I gotta jump in really quick. It makes
Yes,
sense.
please.
It all makes sense. So Max Martin, he was the producer of all those songs. He's from
Yes.
Sweden. So basically, like Sweden was big on like four Sweden actually like I'd say four wave really catchy pop music. I'll just gotta go really quick. ABBA was probably the first wave. After that, you had Roxette with like She's Got the Look and
Mhm.
Listen to Her. Then after that, you had I Saw the Sign, Ace of Base, and actually a member of Ace of Base, not a member, but then Robin, Show Me Love. Anyway, Dennis Pop and Max Martin were basically behind. They had this thing called Chiron Studios, and they and Robin was the first one. Then they had Britney. Then they did NSYNC and Backstreet, and then even like you said, Celine Dion, and that's the way it is. Whatever. That's Max Martin. So Max Martin here is like he actually he worked on this musical. So that's why you have all those pop songs because he did all that stuff. So everyone that you mentioned, I think you mentioned Pink and everybody else. If you wanted to be like a number one single, like between I would say 96 and probably 2004, and you have Max Martin on the squad, you're golden. Because yes, it's gonna be me. Bye bye bye. I want it that way. I mean, I'm not saying that was in the damn play, but all those songs are all Max Martin. All right, continue. I just got
Well,
excited.
real quick too, it reminds me of, and obviously I haven't seen it, but it reminds me of Moulin Rouge, where they took a
Oh
ton
yeah.
of songs that were, popular songs, and they made them work for the show a
Oh,
little differently. And then obviously they had their cast singing them instead of just the original version of them, which I
right.
think is cool. I think it does make a show more relatable
It's a
for
modern
the audience.
spin.
Updated. I also got really quick because this is cosmic. Okay, so we talked about fertility, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about this is called and Juliet. So I don't know if you're gonna be part of this part of the show, but Juliet on Lost, her name is Juliet, and she's a fertility doctor. I'm sorry, dude. Like that's some
That's
cosmic
funny, actually. Yeah.
alignment right there. Woo. Okay.
Synergy.
Yes. All right.
Exactly. But yeah, it actually made me think of Mamma Mia. If either of
Hmm.
you have seen the movie or the show, they took
Also Swedish.
also
ABBA.
Swedish. That's when you said that, Max Martin. I was like, ooh, there's definitely a connection here. But they created the show around, or at least the storyline of Mamma Mia around ABBA's songs. This, they used a very familiar play and storyline, made an alternative, and let's throw some of the best hits of the early 2000s into this show and weave them in. And it's one of those shows like I was sitting in the mezzanine with my girlfriend that I hadn't hung out with in a couple years, and we were cracking up because there were people in the audience like mid show just going like this, like just crazy, so excited with their hands up in the air throughout the show because it's just such a catchy lineup of different songs. It's, I mean, I can't help but play it now on Pandora wherever I go since seeing it. It's, I can tell why it's so popular, with the combination of just, hey, let's throw a very well-known play that pretty much everyone knows about and all these really popular songs all
Dude,
together.
I'm sorry. These are bangers. You were right. 'Cause, dude, I said Robin, right? Show Me Love's in here. Really quick, right? Larger than life. I want it that way. Baby
That's what I'm
won't be
saying.
mine. Show me the meaning of being lonely. I said that. Domino, I don't have one. Show me love. Blow, I'm
Yep.
not a girl, yet a woman. Overprotected, confident. Don't know one.
Yep.
Teenage dream, break free. Oops, I did it again. I kissed a girl. Sorry, Kevin. It's my life. That's like from like 2000. Love me like you do. Oh my God, that's from like the bondage movie. Since you've been gone, what do you want from me? One more try. That's original, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's the way it is. I said that. Celine Dion. Backstreet's back. All right. As long as you love me, it's gonna be May. Stronger. Shape of my heart. I like that one. Effing perfect. Roar. I want it that way again, and then can't stop this feeling. I guess that's the
Yeah.
True movie. Dude, this
Yeah.
is like from start to finish, like a
Oh,
pop
bangers.
a pop pandemonium performance.
100%. And that's one of the reasons why I think everyone wants to see it right now. The
It's like the pop
costume,
Hamilton.
it really is, though. It really is a pop Hamilton. Everyone's talking about it. It blew up on the West End. They brought it here. And my cousin works in the Broadway, like in the Broadway theaters, and she says it is probably one of the only, she characterized it as a jukebox musical.
Yeah. I
And
had no
she said,
idea Anne Hathaway was the real name of
so they keep on, they joke about that throughout the film.
all right.
Throughout the film, sorry, throughout the show, like, I'm the only Anne Hathaway and I will be the only Anne Hathaway. And everyone starts cracking up. But yeah, it's witty. The costumes are fantastic. The vocals are great. And yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I think it's great for all ages, decade generations. I mean, I told my parents about it and they want to see it. They're like, those are classic songs, early 2000s, driving you to school. These came on.
Aww.
So just a lot of good feels and memories. Yeah, exactly. Lots of good vibes. Andrew, I think you would really like this show.
And do you think the message is good at the end?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. You had to think about it.
Like the main character in Scrambled, she defies it, well, really chooses her own destiny at the end.
She controls her controllables.
She controls her controllables, exactly. There's her theme.
Wrap life by the wheel, baby.
Right, exactly.
All right. Well, hey, again, I just for your second appearance, I think that was incredibly organic. So just yeah, I don't know. I think you're kind of a natural at this, if I may be so bold to say, and put you on the spot. Is
I
that okay?
appreciate it.
You appreciate it? Okay.
I do appreciate it. It makes me want to see some more stuff. I'm actually going to see Poor Things on Tuesday. So that's my
Ooh,
next.
yeah, I'm really curious about that one.
Did you see it yet or no?
No, no, I want to, but I won't catch it till it streams.
Okay.
I'm super curious. Is that Ruffalo in that also? It's Mark Ruffalo and Emma Stone.
I just know Emma Stone's in it. I
Yeah,
don't.
I
Oh,
think
that one where she's all like decrepit and stuff.
she's almost
Yeah.
like a Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so I've heard good things about it. I'm seeing it on Tuesday. I put up a poll, and that is what our ladies have voted. So therefore, I saw Scramble tonight, and I will be seeing Poor Things on Tuesday, and hopefully have some good updates on that. And I'll give you guys my thoughts on it next time we meet.
yeah, I'm genuinely curious about that one. Because I think I've been seeing stuff about it for feels like 2 or 3 months, and I just it
Got a lot of
even
Oscar
before it
buzz,
came out.
award buzz,
Yeah.
etc. And Emma Stone is, I
She's
think
fun.
she's the future Meryl Streep, if I'm being honest.
She's doing great stuff. Like I watched maybe I didn't talk about it, but I finished The Curse on Showtime, which is
That
the
just came out too,
series.
right?
Yeah, that is very much an art piece show.
Yeah.
I kind of hated it, like if I'm being honest, but like the performances were all solid. She was great. Like the
Yeah.
character she played was great. Um, but like when it ended, even the ending, I was like, what the fuck just happened? It's such a bizarre show. And like both Kim and Jen started watching it, and both of them stopped because it's so slow paced, and it's a show that's all about like the mood and the like kind of making you uncomfortable. Like the show is just uncomfortable. These people are just
Mhm.
miserable, like life's not really going their way, like,
Right.
and they're oblivious to the fact that their life sucks. Like,
Mhm.
and it's just like it's kind of depressing, and again, it's super uncomfortable. Like these people are not they're not cool people, right? Like and it's like 10 episodes, and they really could have cut like 5 or 6 out of the middle. Because I told Jen and Kim, like, if you started it and you're even a little curious, watch the last episode because it's so friggin' bizarre. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's so like uh it's like the opposite of literal at the end. Like it's so you're just like, okay. like I can't say anything about it without giving it away. And like I don't want to tell anybody to watch the show because it was so weird, but at the same time, I don't want to give anything away if you do watch it. But it's a hard watch, like because it is like to me, it should have been a movie and maybe
Mhm.
a long, artistic movie. And instead, it's an artistic series. And it really is like an art piece. Like it's about mood, it's about feeling, it's about interpretation and all that. Where it's not a straightforward like rom-com where two people fall in love, they fight, they have whatever. You have your meet cute, they're happy at the end, all that. This it's weird for sure.
Check this out. The show deals with subjects such as the artifice of reality television, gentrification, cultural appropriation,
Hmm.
Native American rights, sustainable
Hmm.
capitalism, Judaism,
Hmm.
pathological altruism, virtue signaling, marriage, and parenthood.
Yep.
So that sounds like a big smorgasbord of
Topics.
Yeah, it's almost like it overreached. Like it's almost like it's too much.
too
But at the same
ambitious.
time, like when you look at that list of topics, like that's real life. Like all that stuff's happening all the
Yeah.
time. And
Fair.
basically the gist of the show is this couple is trying to make it on HGTV. And so they're trying to do like what Chip and Joanna Gaines have done in Waco, Texas, where they kind of take this town and they do all their work in this town so that they want to be famous. Well, this town happens to be, I don't know if it's on an Indian reservation or butts up against an Indian reservation. So, um, she's trying to show that she's including the Native Americans in it. Um, but at the same time, like when you're watching it from the outside, you can see that she's clueless. Like she doesn't understand that she's like belittling their culture and and all that. Her husband is just an idiot. Like he thinks he's funny, he's not funny, so they're trying to make this show and be successful. And like she wants she wants to be a good person. She's just not good at being a good person. She's doing it for the wrong reasons. Like she wants to be a good person so she can feel good about herself, right? Instead of being a good person, to be a good
But to
person,
be a
right?
good person.
Yeah.
Right.
And so all these things come together. You've got the HGTV show producer who's just he's a shitty guy. And it's just a mess. Like I mean it's real life stuff. Um, but it's a tragedy too, because like they're just
So check
bad
this out. The Curse was named among the best TV shows of 2023 by Entertainment Weekly,
by the
IndieWire,
critics.
Elle. Okay, fair. And then director for Christopher Nolan, who I do kind of trust, described The Curse as an incredible show and likened it to Twin Peaks, The Prisoner, and The Singing Detective as genuinely having no precedence in television.
But
Now, I will,
yeah.
yeah, I
Uh,
will say, like, I found Oppenheimer a bit bloated and boring. I did fall asleep. Like, I didn't fall asleep. I wanted to, but it's still a great movie. I'm not gonna take away,
mm,
but I do respect Nolan. I do. So I'm
I,
actually,
I
I'm
get what he's
actually,
saying, and I get why the critics liked it. But if you look at the audience score,
oh yeah, it's probably in the tank.
it absolutely bombed audience wise. Like
Yeah.
I don't even like it's for a specific audience, but I don't exactly know what that audience is. It's just weird. It's really weird, and it's like you have to get through it and then sit down and then think about it,
Laura,
right?
you
Like
it
That's
all.
sort of like Saltburn, though. I mean, what type of audience likes Saltburn?
sort of, but like again, and maybe it's because Saltburn is 2 hours long or an hour and a half, 2 hours
Versus a
long,
whole.
Yeah, this
right?
whole
And
series. Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
and there are extended periods of time on the show where nothing is happening, right?
Oh,
Like it's just you just see a building for a few seconds, and that stuff works in a movie when you do it once or twice, right? Like it gives you that mood of it
sure.
happens all the time, and it's just a lot of the show is tedious, but the things that it's doing that are uncomfortable are there to make you uncomfortable when you're watching it. So it's doing what it's supposed to do, and it was well made. Again, the acting was all great. It's just not a show that I like,
Yeah.
like, and I saw a lot of critiques. People are like, well, not everything has to be fun or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, but I kind of watch TV to have fun. Like I watch horror movies because they're fun. I watch action movies because they're fun. I watch comedies because they're fun. Like I get that that's not what it is, but at the same time, that's not really why I watch TV and movies. Like I want to escape that stuff.
Right.
Did you see Get Out, Kevin?
I did see Get Out. Yeah,
What do you think of that one?
I like that
So
one a lot.
yeah, yeah. Because I feel like that one, like that, because that one, I also remember like that's not like a fun. Yeah, there were funny moments for sure, but like it was definitely a bit more like just off kilter. I was trying to like calibrate
But
your.
that one again, and maybe it's because it's under 2 hours, right? Like you can do that, and it's entertaining when you put it in that respect. When you make it 8 hours long, 10 hours long,
Fair.
it's uncomfortable. And
Yeah,
again, it is what it's supposed to be.
yeah.
It's just not fun. Um, yeah, it's a bizarre show. Like I can't recommend it. Like I feel bad
I'm
recommending
still
it,
intrigued, man. I'm
but
still
I
intrigued.
would give it a shot.
I will.
If you have Paramount Plus, they merged
On
with
Showtime.
Showtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have Paramount Plus, it's on there. If you have Showtime, it's on there. Um, so I mean, by all means, give it a watch. Let me know if you get through the whole
It'll
thing.
be a while though, because I'm
Yeah, you gotta get through
I'm
Lost.
OST.
Do you have anything besides Lost at this point for the show?
No.
So I've got one more thing, and I won't make it too long, but it's really cool. It's probably cooler for me than some other people, but um, back in 2020, a video game called The Last of Us Part Two came out as a sequel to The Last of Us, which is one of the best selling games of all time. They just turned it into a TV series for HBO last year, um, which was the biggest show of the year for HBO, up for a bunch of Emmys and all that. Well, because The Last of Us was such a big deal, the game, the company that made this game is called Naughty Dog, and they have a track record of making very impressive games. They make one game at a time. They're big, beautiful games and story intensive and acting intensive and all that. And so after the first Last of Us came out, it was so well received that the studio was kind of like, we don't ever need to make another one. They're like, we finish the story. If we make it and we screw it up, like, are we sinking this company, right? And so when they finally decided to start making it, they hired a documentary crew. And so the documentary crew filmed a bunch of stuff during the process of making this game. And it's really interesting to see because I've played a lot of video games in my life. I don't know a lot about the process of creating a video game, right? Like I know that there's level designers, I know there's sound people, I know there's actors, there's a director, there's all these things, but I don't know what those things look like. And so it was an interesting documentary to watch, to see the creative side of it, to see, how the story unfolded and why they made the decisions they made. But one of the things that happened during the creation of this game, it was originally supposed to release, I think their original goal was the end of 2019. And as they started moving along, they realized that they weren't going to make that. So they made it, I want to say February of 2020.
Mhm.
And as they were getting close to releasing it, COVID hit, which meant even though they were basically done with the game, if you remember, there was a bunch of supply chain issues at the time. So they couldn't ship the game. So they weren't going to make any money off of it. So they delayed it. And that stopped the documentary crews. The documentary crew stopped coming in. But while this happened, there was somebody in, I want to say it was the Netherlands, got pissed because they were blaming Naughty Dog for not shipping it, not COVID for stopping them from shipping it. They hacked into Naughty Dog's servers, stole a bunch of footage from the game and things from the game, and then released it to the public because they thought by doing this, they would force Naughty Dog's hand and force Naughty Dog to ship this game. Well, the problem was there was significant things in, um,
Spoiler shit.
yeah, big time, like things that So fans became irate. Like there were things that people did not want to have happen in this. And if you've never played the games and you're a fan of the Last of Us TV show, I would almost say maybe don't watch this documentary, because there are things that if you don't know, it'll give away. And I think they're pretty critical things. But so there was this huge, leak. And I remember, like, I was so excited for this game myself that I was avoiding Twitter and social media and stuff. And I was actively avoiding anything about The Last of Us or whatever. And somehow, even though I was avoiding the main posts, somebody got me on a reply. Like somebody replied to something I did with the leak that I didn't want to see. Like, because I wanted to experience the game as cold as I could. And of course, the biggest twist in the game was given away. It didn't ruin the game for me. I actually love the game, but it was hard. And and then, as the documentary goes on, they talk about the experience of being an actor in this film, and the one girl, her name is Laura Bailey. She's on Critical Role. If you've ever seen that on YouTube, the D&D game, she's super sweet. She's really pretty. She's sweet. But she plays the villain of the game. Well, because this is because of the reason she's the villain in the game and the things she does and the things that got leaked. She was getting death threats on Twitter. Her son, who was born during the run of filming because she was, or right after, because she was pregnant while they were making this game. Like people said they were going to kill her kid. Like it was crazy. Like, and like, so she's doing an interview well after the fact. Like they filmed the rest of the interviews in 2023, and she's like sweet, and by all accounts from everybody that's ever worked with her, she's like the nicest girl. And she's crying because of course she is, right? You get death threats and people are threatening your kid, and for however, you know, unlikely the death threats actually are, right? Like you have to take that stuff seriously a little bit. Um, and it's really sad to see her, break down. But overall, like, just to tell the story of the game and the things that the studio went through, it's a really interesting documentary. If you're at all interested in the game process, if you like The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part Two, it's a really good watch. Like I said, if you watch the TV series and have never played the games, I would say maybe don't watch it, because there are things that you're better off not knowing if you can avoid them. If you already know all the twists, even if you haven't played the game, then go ahead and watch the documentary. But it's really interesting to see um, just this whole process, and not just the creative process, but the process of like living through the experience of creating what is ultimately one of the biggest games that was released in 2020, because it was so highly anticipated and all the things they went through leading up to it. So
Now, before I create the portal through which Lauren will step through and make her graceful exit, just wanted to ask really quick, Lauren, did you see The Last of Us, like the TV show?
Never have, but I've heard a lot about it.
All right, so let me tell you, I don't think I would just say just watch the first episode. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, if you do stick around, I guarantee you episode 3 will make an impact. Like yeah, like it is a celebrated episode. It is like one of the best episodes on television, period. But no, it was event TV.
yeah.
So I just want to ask you that. So now, yes, the portal opens, and we want to thank you again for gracing us with your presence, adding some diversity, like from a gender standpoint, and things like I never would have seen Scrambled. I don't think Kevin would have either. So I think that's really cool. Juliet, I think that not a no-brainer for us either, but you saw it. So yeah, I think it's great to just be more rounded, man, more well-rounded in our content. So we appreciate you taking time out here on your busy schedule.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.
Yeah,
Me
you too.
All right, bye.
Take care. And then there were two again. Season 4 of Lost. Holy
Yeah, really quick before we jump into
yeah.
that, I realized that I just talked about this documentary and never said the name of it. It's only available on YouTube right now, or if you own The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, they put a patch out and it's actually available to watch on your PlayStation 5 if you own the game. But it's called Grounded 2, the Roman numeral 2, um, named after a difficulty setting in the game itself, which is called Grounded, which is actually in itself is a cool setting because yes, it ups the difficulty in the game, but it also makes it so that like it feels more realistic. Like you're not just going around and finding ammo everywhere and finding all these things that you need to survive just easily. Like it makes it harder to do things. It makes it feel more realistic, and so that's where they came up with the term grounded. But Grounded 2 is the name of the documentary, and it's super, super good.
Awesome.
Now, Lost season 4.
Lost season 4. So I think I'm gonna jump around a little bit. So I'll start with basically um you were right. Um the episode 77, which I like because that's my birth year.
Mhm.
Episode 77, The Constant.
Constant.
Goosebumps. Desmond, I mentioned in the last show that Desmond is someone who's really emerged as one of my favorite characters. So to actually have an episode where, because of some timey-wimey stuff with going to and from the island, like he actually like goes back to 1996 and keeps jumping back and forth was insane. I'm not going to wax too poetic about it. I'm just going to say that, it just felt cool to see him go back and forth and figure things out to find that constant to kind of anchor him back in 2004. But then the way it ends, like the fact that he was able to talk to Penny in 1996, man, and then call her on Christmas Eve of like whenever it was, like the later thing, and then it worked. Like, yo, dude, like anyway, it was a brilliant ending, and I'm totally not doing it justice. But anyway, it was a great episode.
And it's cool too because it shows that this was actual time travel, right? Just that idea that he said, "I'm going to call you on this day. Please still have your phone." And then he does it, and she does, says this isn't some funky dream sequence. We're not talking about alternate reality or anything like that. His consciousness, not him necessarily, but his consciousness was bouncing between these two eras, and it legitimately was. So, he was traveling effectively through time.
Amazing. The other episode that really stood out to me, I can't even find the name of the episode, but I can tell you what happens in it. Yo, Ben Linus, okay, is in Saudi Arabia, dude. And like he's just like all like victimy. These two guys on horseback show up and it looks like he's fucked. And somehow this little man overpowers them, kills them, takes a horse, and just goes back rides into town. Then he meets up with Saeed. Saeed's like basically like F you, whatever. But and actually, yeah, Saeed kills the guy who's going to kill Ben, who, by the way, was the captain in Star Trek 2009. So I thought that was cool that J.J. Abrams remembered that guy and whatever. I don't know where he showed up first, but I thought that was cool. Then I love how Saeed's like, yo, dude, like, I got nothing, tell me who to kill. Like, it's just crazy to me how like Ben and Saeed form this alliance and Ben is this badass. But then the best part is Ben is such a badass. He actually goes into the bedroom of Widmore. And it's just such cold shit. Like, yeah, I could kill you, but yeah, that's not good enough. I'm gonna kill your daughter. Like, I'm not here to kill you. And the way Mr. Woodward kept asking him, so why are you here? It actually reminded me of Tywin Lannister, like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so high up, it's like, it's a different code. And it's
Yeah.
just like the way that Widmore, like you broke the code, you changed the rules. You changed the rules because you killed my daughter got killed. Like it was just two titans. But it's like, I'm not gonna kill you in your bed. I could, but like, no, I'm gonna kill your daughter just so that
Yeah.
you know how to feel. Like that is some gangster shit.
Yeah. He's like, I don't want to kill you. I want to hurt you in the most painful way I can.
A lot of major stuff happened in this season. Um, I'm not sure how I feel about like this season versus last season. I almost feel like me personally, and maybe I'm just being like whatever, but like I feel like season 3 was still, I think for me, still probably the for me the better season.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think of season 4 as a bridge. So I'm hoping that season 5 and 6 are like nuts. But season 4 still had some amazing moments, and I was able to fly through it. It was 14 episodes. Um, Michael, honestly, he redeemed himself, which is crazy because I've been saying for this whole podcast, I hate Michael. So the fact that Michael finally is like coming back, tries to save the boat, stalls, the bomb with the nitrogen, is a spy and makes it happen and makes it possible for like Ben and the others to not, or the people in the island to like outsmart Widmore and these mercenaries. That was cool. I loved seeing the smoke monster take out those mercenaries. I still don't know how Ben did it, but that was awesome. Because that was the first time in my life I've liked the smoke monster. My heart broke when his daughter got killed.
Oh yeah.
Um,
When Alex
I
dies.
that was rough because it's like you could tell it even caught it caught him off guard. It caught Ben off guard. He was not expecting that.
Yeah, he thought he had complete control because it's what he says to Widmore later on. He's like, there was a code like this. You don't do this, and this guy did something that wasn't supposed to be able to happen. And so, like, as soon as it happens to you, you see Ben just break. Ben's like, okay, now it's on. Like he goes dark again at the end of the season too. Like
Yeah.
he's ready to burn the world for this girl that's not technically his daughter.
Yeah, but we all know
And
how that
even
goes, though. I
though
mean, like,
even though he kind of raised her as his daughter, he wasn't a good dad. Like he was kind of crappy. But he still loved her, obviously, even though he wasn't great at it. He still loved her, and then that he had to go out and kick ass.
it's funny. It's almost like they just got. It's almost and felt though at the same time. It's almost like because they were running out of like script time, they just got rid of like Danielle, her and her boyfriend, all like pretty much the same episode.
Yeah.
So it felt a little like Rousseau, Danielle Rousseau. So but I gotta say this, Martin, the guy who played Martin Keeney, the lead,
Kevin Durant.
you know his name, all right. So first of all, I was like, I've seen you before, and you
He's
like you you're like you look like a dick. Like you look like a dick. Like you look like a cool dick, but still a dick, right? So then I finally it was bothering me, so I had to look him up, and I realized where I saw him. He was in Fruitvale Station. So if you're familiar with that
okay.
movie,
Yeah.
he's one of the cops who basically is involved in the shooting where Michael B. Jordan's character, which is a true story,
Yep.
ends up. So I was like, that's where I've seen you because I remember like he's a tall cop and he's just like, yo, like what's going on here? And then like it wasn't him who shot him, but it was his partner. But it was still like he just has that face.
Well,
But then
yeah.
like, he going,
I was gonna say early in his career, he did stand-up comedy. Like he was actually a comedian. He was much smaller. Like he was not as big as he is now. But he did comedy early in his career.
well, he plays. Wow, he's from Las Vegas. He plays like he did a good job. Like the other thing about this show is like deaths that make you smile or are satisfying. So when he gets shot in the back, I was like, yes, right. But then it turns out, yeah, his body armor, right? So then when like Linus just stabs him in the neck, like I sort of got it. Yeah, you talk about well, what about the bow? But I was kind of like,
Well, I love when I can't remember the line
the
that
long.
Ben says. But
Yes,
Ben's like, he's like, sometimes you get emotional and make bad choices.
that's exactly what he said. Yes.
You're just like, damn.
But it's like, but it's so relatable. Like
Mm.
so he did it twice, you know. So that was great. Ben is like he's that G dude, and the fact that he ends up becoming like basically Batman, like after he gets off the island, like he just shows up to shit, and is kind of like he's like he has this list and he tells people what to do and he dresses in black, like
But like even beforehand, so when you're in one of the last three episodes, he's walking with Jack, and Jack's like, well, why are you doing this or this or this? And he's like, Jack, I always have
have
a
a plan.
plan. And you're
Yeah.
just like, oh shit, because like it's because he's such a little wiener. Like it's hard to remember just how badass this guy is and just how smart he is. And he really, really is. Like he's so smart. He's so clever. And it's crazy.
So when I remember that when basically when Hurley's talking to Locke and Hurley's like and Locke's like, hey, well, you know, we have the map now or whatever to go to the cabin. So there's still time to go back to the beach. And then Hurley's like, okay, but is going to the beach in the dark safer than hanging out with you guys? And he's like, I don't know, it could be dangerous. He's like, I think I'll stay with you. And then Ben walks up and goes, that was really good. Like he thinks it was his idea, you know? And then Locke's like, I'm not like you, dude. I wasn't manipulating him, you know? And then I'll never be like you. But it was funny to me how like I also saw it as a little innocent because if I was Hurley, I wouldn't want to go by myself either. I don't want to hang with them.
Yeah.
But the way that Ben was thinking it was like, no. And which is so just INTJ-ish. So Ben's always thinking like 10 steps ahead, which is just such a wonder and a sight to behold. The episode with Saeed and the spy, they were both like they're both like the woman who was I think she was working for Whitmore, and like the fact that like she shot him, but she only shot him in the arm, but then he went and shot her in the heart. Like that was crazy to me because it was like, yeah, I do think there was real like attraction there. Like I think she really did like him, but like she, you know, there were some strong episodes and story in this season, but ultimately I did see this as a bridge. You last show you told me that there was something about advertising the finale or something like that that you
So
said.
yeah, so what it was, I was mistaken. It wasn't after it was the coffin scene. So what they did, so this show was a J.J. Abrams production. So it was super tight. Like scripts did not leak. You could not get your scripts. A lot of times people only got the scripts for their part and they did not get other parts. Like it was super tight. And they were worried about because they started talking about Jeremy Bentham in
Yes.
in part one. Yeah, they may
Yes.
have referenced him earlier in the series too, but or in season two, but in the finale, it's a three-part finale. And in the first episode, they start talking about Jeremy Bentham and they talk about it being a funeral. I think it's in episode two, they start talking about it being a funeral, but um, there was talk about a body in a coffin. And to protect themselves, they leaked three photos. One of them was John Locke in the coffin.
Uh-huh.
One of them was Desmond in the coffin,
That was
and
my guess.
one of them was Sawyer in the coffin.
I was my other guess too. I actually thought of all three, but I was like, I don't want it to be Locke because he's too fucking important. So then I was like, it's Sawyer or Desmond. Fuck. That's funny that okay, so at least my brain was in the right place.
Yeah.
So when it was Locke, I texted you because I literally on my couch alone, no one's here. But I'm like, no. Like I was like, no, no. Because the thing is, like that one, like I'm terrible with actors' names. But anyway, that one guy with the dark features, he looks like he's like Greek or
Richard
some shit.
Alpert.
I guess so. He's the one who's like doesn't age for some reason.
Yep.
Like he's showing up.
It's
Yeah,
Richard. Yeah.
yeah. Like the fact that he's like, I love how Locke comes into his genius, like gangsterness, like walks up to like the others, and they're all like, "Yeah, dude, you're our leader." And it's like they've been, he showed up to his birth, man. So Locke is meant for some big things. So the fact that he's dead, what? Like So, anyways, they did a really good job because now I must keep going. I must.
Well, okay, and so also remember that like at the very end of this episode, so the way or this season, the way that it ends, Ben's like he's almost like a demon or a vampire, right? He's like with Jack, and he's like, you have to give yourself to me. He's like, you have to believe in me. You have to do everything I tell you to do. And Jack is so fucking broken, like so broken. He's just like, okay. And he's getting ready to leave, and Ben's like, yeah,
Gotta bring him too.
take the
Yes,
dead
that's
bro too.
right.
So, um, yeah,
Yeah.
there's some very symbolic shit that happens in the next couple of episodes for you based on the beginning of the show, right?
Here's
Because
my thing, like, but my whole thing too is almost like, yo, you just like completely estranged like Kate and the baby. So how the hell are you supposed to bring them back? Like chloroform their asses and drag them? Like she's not coming willingly. She even said like and then fucking Claire shows up like, do not take him back to the island. So like, what's that all about?
well, that
Like,
was a dream sequence, and you can tell it was a dream sequence
well, yeah, I know it's
because when she picks up the phone, I'd have to look it up, but the voice is recorded backwards. So if you listen to the voice on the phone, you can't understand what it's saying because it's in reverse. They did a lot of stuff with sound in that regard. So I think we talked about it before, but in the early seasons, when you hear the voices in
yes.
the jungle,
Yeah.
they're actually saying things. They're just played in reverse or they're jumbled or whatever, but there's real words in there. And this is one of those things that when fans became hardcore back in the forum days, people would record the episode, break it down,
Reverse.
reverse it, do everything they could to figure out what was being said.
Wow. Wow.
Uh,
Well, yeah, no, I knew it was dream sequence, but the thing is, like, dream sequences to me are legit in this
sure,
show. I mean,
sure.
because that's how Locke knew how to get the blueprint or the whatever to the cabin. Because that guy was like, I've been dead 10 years, dude, but like, come find me, and he found him in the pit, looked in the pocket, and there it was. So, yo, the island just disappeared. It went zoop like that.
They moved the island.
That was nuts. So yeah, no, there's no, I'm so glad I just decided to do this. There's no way I could have done just 2 episodes to see. Like, sorry guys, like for the others, like nah, this is the way to do it. And it's gonna be so much easier now because like, these last couple seasons are shorter. So
Hmm.
what a journey, man. And again, I'm that much closer again to connecting with the rest of humanity. And then I want to join, Tom, if you're watching. I know you were like, oh, the finale sucked or whatever. Like, I cannot wait to enter the fray.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I can have that debate with people because for me, it was perfect. But there is a significant number of people. Now, there are people that hated it because they just didn't understand the show, right? And that is a different subset of people. Like if somebody comes to me and they're like, I didn't like the ending because they were dead the whole time, I'm like, you're wrong. Like that's just fact. Like that's not opinion. That's not like I was like, you need to go watch the fucking whole thing over again and straighten yourself out. And if you still hate it after that, come back with a better reason, but don't tell me that you hated it because they were dead the whole time because they were not. Um, like it was stated from the beginning, from the directors and creators, they are not dead the whole time. And you can see that they get off the island, they come back to the real world. We've seen that in this season. Um, so if you didn't like it for that reason, you're wrong. Now, if you didn't like it for other reasons, I don't want to tell you what those reasons are because they're specific.
Spoilery. Yeah.
Yeah, they could give some stuff away. Um, but like if that's your reason for not liking it, I respect it. I don't agree, but I do respect it. Um, Alex, who was on the show before, and you've been on with Alex once or twice, I think. Um, he is also a huge Lost fan, and he loves the ending. So me and Alex are like almost in complete agreement about Lost.
Nice.
We are
Okay.
in complete agreement about The Last of Us, and we are in complete disagreement about The Last of Us Part Two. Um, but when it comes to Lost, I kind of when you finish the show, I kind of want to see if Alex will be free to come on
Hell yeah, dude.
and just be a second um a second set of
Down for that.
eyes and ears to just to go over it there at the end, because you're going to talk about the end, you're going to talk about the last season, you're going to talk about the ending, but when you talk about that, you have to talk about the show as a whole.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's an ending for sure. Like it is
Definitive, conclusive.
no, yes and no. It depends. Like
So are you saying there could be like they could like return to Lost? Like there could be a spin-off
that
or something.
that has been up in the air for a long time, because um they're like, should we reboot it? Should we make a sequel? Should we do whatever? And Lindelof, Cuse, and Abrams are like, do not include us in that shit. They're like, we don't want to do that. They're like, I feel like with the fandom, the number of things that they could do to move the story along, either a sequel or a prequel, are very limited in scope. Like, you would have to be very particular about what you did to not alienate the fan base. I don't think a remake would be well received. It's like, no one's ever going to remake the first three Star Wars films, right? They came out in the 70s, they're old, whatever. No one's ever going to remake those. And if you do, you're just an ass clown. Like, you can't do it. And this is one of those things that, now it's been 20 years,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's just, you can't, even if you take into account the difference in storytelling now, it would be a different show, altogether. And so I just think there are, like I said, there are things that you could do to continue the story one way or another. Um, but they would have to be really, really specific to work. Um, and we can talk about some of those when you get to the end, because I think there are some that you could like see. But yeah, it's an interesting one at the end.
Wow.
Um, but so, okay, so you've gone through all this stuff. You have, let's see, I'm trying to think of everybody that you've met so far. So you've met Richard.
Yeah.
In a roundabout way, you've met Jacob-ish.
Yeah, but Jacob-ish was basically, well, I think did Jacob freak out in season 3 or 4? Like when they had the whole like freak out in the cabin. I remember like when Locke and Ben went in there, it was a freak out session, things were flying around. I can't even remember anymore. But then when we met him again, it wasn't Jacob. It was like it was the dad of
Of Jack.
Claire and Jack. It was
Yeah.
like I speak for them, for Jacob. But that was cool. But I'm glad you said something, because like I do want to give lip service to a couple of other people who Daniel Faraday. I liked him. He was, and I didn't look at the grid, but he might have been the INTP. I liked him. I liked him.
Mhm.
I think he was a little squirrely, but I think he
Yep.
was really good in that episode, The Constant.
With Constant. Yeah.
He shined in that episode. I actually also liked Miles.
Yes.
I I like his power, and I still want to understand like what that's about. Like, how can you sense this shit? Miles is an X-Men The Last Stand. I've always seen him in three things. He was in X-Men The Last Stand. He was in one of the Saw films, and
He's in Star Wars. He's in the sequels. At least one, maybe only the first one, because it was JJ. Maybe the first and the third one. Um,
oh, as in the got it. Yeah, as in the new
yeah.
one.
But
Yeah.
he's actually done a lot of stuff lately. He was just on something else. He's a little harder to recognize because he's gone very gray in a
Okay.
short amount of time. So he looks a little older and all that, but he's been doing stuff lately. I've seen him in a few different things. But I like him a lot. I've always liked him a lot. Um, and he's really solid in
Oh,
Lost.
he's gonna be in Joker.
All right.
The new ones.
Baliadi.
And he was in Old. I didn't recognize him in that one. But he does a good mix of television and He was a voice in Velma too. But anyway, I liked him. I couldn't stand the redhead. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, that's not an uncommon feeling. It's the character, it's not the actress. Like the character just kind of meh.
Yeah.
Um, I, I think you'll get a little more on her down the line, like at least to understand why she is the way she is. Um, but yeah, so you haven't started season 5, right?
Well, no, I literally just finished season 4 like 15 minutes before we turned on this podcast. Down
So
the fire, photo finish.
yeah, so I mean, what questions do you want to see answered going into this next season?
Um, now I just want to know, like, okay, where did the island go? I want to know what cold ass place was Ben in when he turned the gears to make the island go. Um, I want to know more about like is does time just work differently on the island? It must, because maybe that's why those others are still young, like that Richard guy you said. Uh and being able to go back and like see him as a kid and then see him as a baby, then kid, then all these stages in his life. I want to know, okay, whatever happened to the black chick from season 2 who was part of the group? Like she just disappeared. You know what I'm talking
Which
about?
one?
She was as in not Rose, but like the black other. So she was the one who was basically talking to Michael saying, "Hey, you fucked up. You need to bring these people back or whatever." Like she had like a wrapping around and she was kind
Yep.
of scared. She just disappeared. Maybe like she just like something bad happened and they wrote out a show. I don't know. Anyway, what happened to her? But whatever. I want to know what Lance Reddick anyway,
Yep.
yeah. What's his deal? Who the hell is he? Um, there are a lot of loose threads, but and yeah, how the hell is again? I just see this. I mean, if Jin's really, I mean, I don't want Jin to be dead. I'm sorry. Like I liked Jin. Like Jin really, I think on the first season you kind of hate the dude because you feel like he's abusive, but
Yeah.
then like but he really like you're a G. Like you came from a fucked up situation.
I mean, you know who
Uh,
else is a fucking G is his wife, dude. In
son,
that finale when she goes to her dad and
yeah,
she's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I totally bought your company, you dick."
yeah, yeah,
She's
controlling
like,
interest.
"Yeah, she's like, so you respect me now."
Yeah, no,
Like
so
I was like, "Damn."
yes, and then even walked up to Widmore. So it's
Hmm.
like, Widmore is a shady motherfucker, dude. Like, I really don't like him. I really don't like him, and I hope he dies. Sorry, this is terrible. You shouldn't wish death on anyone. These are characters, so I'm not wishing death on a real person. So there. But Widmore, you gotta go, dude. Like, you gotta go. Um, and because I don't want anything to happen to. Well, see, that sucks now. Because I don't want anything to happen to Dez's girl. Like, you know what I'm saying? But like, yo, like, Bed's coming for her. So like, I don't know. Like, again, I just see 4 as a bridge episode. You know what I think? I think season 4 is going to be like Ultron in a way. It's like season 4 might get improved for me by what comes afterwards. Because a lot of things are set up, I think, in this season. I think that's what it
For
is.
sure.
I feel like 1, 2, and 3 were like an arc, and I think 4, 5, and 6 are like going to be another arc. Maybe that's how it works.
Yeah, there are definitely different stories coming down the pipeline in season
Because
5
like
and
season
6.
4 or 5, like season 3, 1, 2, and 3 were all about the flashbacks, right? And season 4 is now the flash forwards. So I feel like that's also kind of the symmetry I see in the kind of storytelling.
And
I've never
I know it seems like it's been a theme, but I can't wait for you to get to the finale of season 5 because where that one leaves you, you're going to be like, wait, wait. Um, so yeah, yeah, I'm excited for you to get there because there's some very interesting stuff. There's some really good character stuff that happens, especially towards the end of season 5. I don't remember how season 5 was received. But it definitely, they do some different stuff with it for sure.
You know, I also got the sense, like, as season 4 ended, in a way, like, they could, like, if this show gets canceled, like, it could, like, it would suck, like, to end it here. But I just felt like at least you've got the Oceanic Six back. Yo, but okay. But yeah, I feel like season 4 could, because they tied up a couple of things, right? Yeah, if the island disappears and then like Locke's dead, like, and then the show's canceled, maybe there'd be like a fan up. There would be a fan uproar to be like, what the fuck? But anyway, it was, yeah, it's mm. Yeah, no, I am satisfied. I am satiated. I feel like, I'll give props. Kev on stage, I think also helps inspire this, because between going to Hawaii and seeing all the things and you saying the temples shows up, and then just even Kev burning through AOT, and that's not like a short show. Yes, the episodes are like 20 something minutes, but it's still a lot of episodes, and he burned through whole seasons in like 2, 3 nights.
Yeah, that one,
So
it tore him up, man. He had to he had to get himself through it.
yeah, so I feel the same way, and it's fun. It's fun. So yeah, I can see the appeal to burning, to binging rather, not burning.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I think we have yet done another hot one. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm gonna be there next week, which is like, but I'll be back the week after. But yeah, I had to come through and go hard in the paint with season 4, and bring Lauren back in, and yeah, that's all I
Yeah,
got.
it was good to have her, because I think that is the stuff that she brings in, or the stuff that she's watching, is definitely different. Like, it's outside of the scope of what we're used to seeing, and I think it's pretty cool. Um, the like you said, Scrambled probably isn't a movie that I would have even heard of.
Yeah, same.
And I probably wouldn't have seen it, but I'm glad that she did, to get um the interpretation on it. And then she's a musical fan, and she's she does the Broadway lottery, so that's actually kind of cool. So yeah, she's been a lot of fun to have on, so that's really cool. Um, and then yeah, I don't know what I'll do next week. I have to see what's coming out. I don't know what's coming out here at the beginning of the month. Um, and see what I can come up with for next week. See if anybody else can join, and we'll go from there. But this one was good, so we'll have to live with the knowledge that we had a nice episode today.
Amen.
So yeah, with that, I will say to our audience, wherever you may be, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and we will do our best to put something together for next week, and we will see you then.
Peace, and thank you. In a way, I almost wonder if the creator of Attack on Titan watched Lost, just because of all the timey-wimey stuff going on. It's like it's just, I love how, I just love storytelling that really ties the past, present, and future together, and even plays with time. Because even like when like the doctor got his throat slit, like, dude, like the dead body showed up like on the island before it actually happened on the boat. Yo, I'm sorry. I'm gonna like, again, I'm not like spilling all my candy in the lobby per se, but holy shit.